What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video on my channel. Today we talk about the Spark SQL API, and I want to give you a brief introduction into the main players of that API. Let's get started. So I have created this small overview sheet here, which demonstrates the main actors in the Spark SQL API. Now we will use all of these in our code as we are developing Spark applications, and it depicts the classes available in the org.apache.spark.sql package. Now in the courses I give, I usually see that people are struggling with this quite a bit, and therefore this small overview. Now let's start with the Spark session. Now the Spark session is the central entry point to our program. The first thing that we need to do in our program is to create this Spark session. Now the Spark session is responsible for holding configuration, so we can add configuration during the creation of the Spark session, and the Spark session will also be passed around in Spark and can be used to retrieve the configuration. Secondly, we can use the Spark session to execute SQL queries in text format. So if we say spark.sql, we can specify an SQL query which will be executed on the Spark cluster. Additionally, the Spark session is also responsible for creating data frames. So it can provide us with a data frame reader if we call spark.read, and in the data frame readers, all of the file formats are implemented. For example, JSON, text files, CSV files, Parquet, Avro, and so on. So the Spark session also is responsible for creating new data frames by reading data from multiple sources. Finally, we can create data frames using the Spark session from within our program. The second component I want to show here is the dataset. So the dataset is a generic class, and it takes a type parameter, which I refer to as T. And usually a data frame is simply a dataset of the type row, which we are going to see next. Now the dataset is the central abstraction of the distributed data and provides us with the SQL-like API that we are using in our program. So on a dataset, we can call .select for selecting columns, .filter to filter out rows, to add columns, or to join data frames, which is only a small selection of the functionality available. So the dataset is basically the central abstraction over the data we're working with. And then we have a row class, which basically represent a quite generic row type. So it has a schema, so it defines which columns are available and what type they have. And if we say we want to have a dataset of row, we're talking about a generically typed dataset, and this has a shorthand as well, which is called the data frame. Then we have a column, so you can imagine a column object being really the column of a table. So the column has a data type as well and a name, and it provides us with basic functionality, for example, to cast the column into a different data type, to provide a new alias, so a new column name, and some basic arithmetic operations, for example, to compare for equality with a different column, or to add constants and so on. Down here, we also have an object which is called functions. So it's in org Apache Spark SQL functions. And this object basically provides so a very wide variety of functions, which we can use together with columns and data frames to build powerful SQL-like logic in our Spark program. Finally, in the very end here, we have the types. So org Apache Spark SQL.types, and within that package, we find all of the data types which are available in Spark SQL. So for example, we have the struct type, which basically represents a schema. So it's a composition of other types, for example, primitive types like integer, string type, or even object types like date type and so on. And all of these types that are available in Spark SQL are defined in this package. Now, I hope you find this overview helpful. I saw many people struggling with not knowing how to find the documentation and so on, and therefore I wanted to provide you with this overview. So see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.